All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep into the life and times of Mark Zuckerberg.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, he's the guy behind Facebook, right?
Right, yeah.
Meta, all that. And Forbes just named him the second wealthiest person in the entire world as of March 2025.
Wow.
Yeah, $214.1 billion. It's a crazy amount of money. And you know what's even crazier? He was the world's youngest self-made billionaire.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. When was that?
Back in 2008, he was only 23. But it hasn't all been smooth sailing for him. He's had his fair share of legal battles.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Lots of controversy surrounding, how Facebook started, who owns what, all that stuff. It's a really fascinating story.
Definitely. It's amazing how much power and influence he's gained at such a young age.
It really is. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. For this deep dive, we're primarily using his Wikipedia page. It's super detailed, goes into everything. And our goal is to give you, the listener, a clear understanding of how he became, Mark Zuckerberg.
That's like a plan.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning with his early life. Born May 14th, 1984, White Plains, New York.
Okay.
Parents: Karen, a psychiatrist, and Edward, a dentist.
Huh.
Yeah, so, pretty professional family background. Grew up in Dobbs Ferry, New York, Reformed Jewish household.
Okay.
3 sisters, Ariel, Randy, and Donna. And what I found interesting is that his great-grandparents were immigrants from Austria, Germany, and Poland.
That's really interesting, that family background. It often gives you clues about how someone develops,
Yeah.
Like his parents being professionals. Maybe that influenced his drive to achieve.
Yeah, and the immigrant background, maybe that instilled a certain ambition, like making the most of opportunities.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about his education. Started at Ardsley High School, but then he transferred to Phillips Exeter Academy. Super prestigious prep school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and guess what? He was captain of the fencing team.
No way.
Yeah. But computers, that's where his real talent was. He started programming, get this, as a kid, really young. And then around the age of 11, he created ZuckNet.
What's that?
It was basically a messaging program, but for his house. It connected his family's home to his dad's dental office.
So even as a kid, he was thinking about connecting people. That's pretty amazing,
Yeah.
Solving problems with technology. It wasn't just playing games, he was creating them.
Exactly. And that carried right through to high school. He built this music player, the Sun Apps media player.
What was special about that?
It used machine learning to figure out your music taste and recommend songs. It was so advanced, it even got reviewed by PC Magazine.
Seriously?
Yeah, 3 out of 5 stars. And The New Yorker, they had this great line about him. They said, "Some kids played computer games, Mark created them." I mean, it's true. He even took a graduate-level computer science course at Mercy College while he was still in high school.
That's unbelievable. He was so far ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, he was a real prodigy. And then, of course, came Harvard.
Of course, Harvard.
2002. He arrives on campus, and by then, he already had this reputation. Everyone knew him as a programming genius.
Yeah, you can't really escape that reputation when you're that talented.
Right. So at Harvard, he studies psychology and computer science, lives in Kirkland House, joins the Alpha Epsilon Pi fraternity, pretty standard college stuff. But of course, he doesn't stop coding. He develops Course Match, which helps students pick classes and form study groups.
Yeah, makes sense. Typical Zuckerberg, connecting people.
Exactly. But then there's this other project, Face Mash.
Face Mash, what's that?
Oh, this was interesting and kind of controversial.
Yeah.
So he basically creates this website where students could rate each other's attractiveness.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can see how that would be controversial.
Yeah, it was a big deal. He used photos from these things called Facebooks, which were student directories with pictures.
Oh, so that's where the name comes from.
Maybe. But the university wasn't happy about it. They shut it down pretty quickly. It was overloading their network. And a lot of students were upset about their photos being used without permission.
Yeah, understandable. I bet that was a big lesson for him.
Definitely. I mean, he did publicly apologize, and the student newspaper called it completely improper. But in a way, it kind of foreshadows some of the stuff he would face later on, right? Issues with privacy, unintended consequences of technology, and, pushing boundaries a bit too far.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now we get to the birth of Facebook. It's January 2004, and Zuckerberg starts coding a new website. Now, some people say he got the idea from his prep school, Phillips Exeter Academy.
Really?
Yeah, they had this thing called the photo address book, but everyone just called it the Facebook. It was basically a directory with photos and contact info for students.
Interesting. So he kind of took that idea and brought it to the digital world.
Exactly. He saw the potential to connect people on a much larger scale. So on February 4, 2004, he launches the Facebook with his roommates, Eduardo Saverin, Andrew McCollum, Dustin Moskovitz, and Chris Hughes.
The Facebook.com. I remember those days.
Oh, yeah. But just 6 days after launch, things get messy. Big time.
What happened?
These 3 Harvard seniors, Karen and Tyler Winklevoss and Divya Narendra, they accuse Zuckerberg of basically stealing their idea.
Stealing their idea? How so?
They claim that they had this concept for a social networking site called harvardconnection.com, and that Zuckerberg had agreed to help them build it, but then went off and used their ideas to create Facebook.
Wow.
It's a whole saga. The Harvard Crimson, the student newspaper, they even launched an investigation.
Of course. That's a pretty serious accusation.
Yeah, and it gets even more complicated. Zuckerberg tries to stop the story from being published, and then it comes out that he might have even hacked into the email accounts of 2 of the Crimson editors to, spy on them.
Oh, way! Seriously?
Seriously. It gets pretty dark. Eventually, the Winklevoss twins and Narendra, they file a lawsuit.
Did they win?
Well, there's a settlement. They got 1.2 million Facebook shares and $20 million in cash.
Wow. That's a lot of money, even back then.
Oh, yeah, huge. But it kind of set the tone, this whole idea that Zuckerberg, to get ahead, he might be willing to bend the rules, even break them.
Yeah, it definitely makes you wonder about his ethics. But, Facebook was growing super fast at this point, right?
Oh, yeah, it was spreading like wildfire. First, it was just a Harvard thing, but then Zuckerberg decides to expand. With Dustin Moskovitz, they take it to other schools, Columbia, NYU, Stanford, all the big ones. And pretty soon, it's everywhere.
A network effect, right? The more people use it, the more valuable it becomes.
Exactly. So Zuckerberg drops out of Harvard, sophomore year, moves to Palo Alto, California, with Moskovitz and some other co-founders. Classic Silicon Valley move.
Yeah, got to be in the heart of it all.
Right. They rent this small house, turn it into their office. The rest, as they say, is history. Summer of 2004, he meets Peter Thiel. Thiel becomes an early investor in Facebook. Game changer. They get their first real office.
So at this point, they're fully committed to Facebook. No going back to Harvard.
Nope. They even start getting offers from major corporations to buy Facebook.
Did they take any of them?
No. Zuckerberg says no.
Why not? We're talking probably a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, a ton. But he had this vision, right? He wanted to keep Facebook independent. In his words, he wanted to create an open information flow for people.
So he was thinking big picture, long term.
Definitely. He even said something like, having media corporations owned by conglomerates is just not an attractive idea to me. But then, he also makes this comment that kind of rubs people the wrong way.
What's that?
He said, young people are just smarter. Flat out said it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you can see how that wouldn't go over well with everyone. A bit arrogant, maybe.
Well, sure. A little tone deaf.
Yeah. But hey, maybe that's part of what drives him, right? That unwavering belief in himself and his vision.
Could be. But his mission for Facebook, it evolves over time. By 2010, he's saying it's all about making the world open.
Making the world open. Interesting.
Yeah. And get this. By July 2010, they hit 500 million users. 500 million.
That's incredible. That's 500 million people.
I know, it's mind-boggling. But then, of course, everyone starts asking, okay, how are you going to make money from all these users?
Right, because at that point, Facebook wasn't really generating much revenue.
Yeah, not compared to its size. But Zuckerberg, he keeps saying they're not in a rush. They want to focus on user experience, not just cramming ads down people's throats.
A long-term strategy. Build the user base first, then figure out the monetization.
Exactly. He even said, we make enough money. We are keeping things running. We are growing at the rate we want to.
Pretty bold statement.
Yeah, but you can't argue with his success. And, he always had this hacker mentality.
What do you mean by that?
Well, this author, Stephen Levy, he wrote this book called Hackers. And he describes Zuckerberg as someone who loves to tinker, to build, to experiment. And Zuckerberg himself has this famous quote. He said, it's okay to break things as long as you're making them better.
That's the classic Silicon Valley ethos, right? Move fast and break things.
Yeah. And that was really ingrained in Facebook's culture. They even started doing these hackathons every few weeks.
Hackathon?
Yeah, like these all-night coding sessions where people would just build and experiment and come up with new ideas.
Yeah.
It was all about speed and innovation.
I can see how that would lead to some breakthroughs, but also maybe some mistakes along the way.
For sure. But by this point, it's clear Zuckerberg is a force to be reckoned with. MIT Technology Review, they put him on their TR35 list of top innovators under 35.
That's a huge honor.
Yeah, and it's just the beginning. Vanity Fair, they name him the most influential person in the information age.
Wow. That's a pretty big deal.
Oh, yeah. And he even gets advice from Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they talk about building great products, creating a strong management team, all that. Pretty cool mentorship moment.
It really is. I mean, getting advice from Steve Jobs, that's like the ultimate Silicon Valley blessing.
Totally. But Zuckerberg's ambitions, they go beyond just the U.S. In 2012, he meets with the Russian Prime Minister, Dmitry Medvedev. They talk about social media innovation in Russia, and Zuckerberg ends up opening a research center in Moscow.
That's interesting, expanding into new markets, different political systems.
Exactly. Back in the U.S., they launched this thing called Facebook Home. It was basically a way to make Facebook the center of your phone experience on Android phones.
I vaguely remember that. Didn't really take off, though, right?
Not really, but 85 million people tried it out on the first day. It was huge at the time. But then, that same year, something ironic happens. Zuckerberg's own Facebook profile gets hacked.
Wait, seriously? The guy who created Facebook, his account gets hacked?
Yeah, by some unemployed web developer, of all people. It's a reminder that no one is really safe online, even the people who build these platforms.
For sure. No system is perfect.
Yes.
But, Zuckerberg, he's always had this kind of global vision, right? Connecting everyone.
Yeah, and that leads him to start Internet.org in 2013.
What was the goal of that?
The goal was to connect everyone in the world to the internet. The 5 billion people who didn't have access. Super ambitious.
Sounds like a noble goal.
It was, but it ran into trouble, especially in India. People had concerns about net neutrality, like would Internet.org favor certain websites or services? And ultimately, it gets shut down in India in 2016.
I see. So good intentions, but maybe some complications with how it was implemented.
Exactly. But Zuckerberg doesn't give up on this idea of connecting the world. At Mobile World Congress in 2014, he gives this big speech about how mobile technology is the future and how important it is to get everyone online.
Mobile first, right?
Yeah.
That's been the trend for a while now.
Totally. And he doesn't just focus on developing countries. That same year, he meets with Lu Wei, who was basically China's top internet regulator. This is even though Facebook was banned in China.
That's interesting. So he's trying to engage even where Facebook isn't allowed.
Yeah, he even holds a Q&A session at Tsinghua University in Beijing, and he speaks in Mandarin Chinese. He's clearly interested in China in a big way.
Long-term strategy again. Maybe hoping the ban will be lifted someday.
Maybe. And he's always trying to manage Facebook's public image. Later that year, back at Facebook HQ, he does this live Q&A. He defends Facebook, says it's all about connecting people, and that he wants to hear from the community.
Transparency, right. Trying to show that he's listening.
Exactly. And he takes this $1 salary as CEO.
Yeah, the symbolic $1 salary. We've seen that before.
Yeah, but then in 2016, he and his wife, Priscilla Chan, they do something really incredible. They pledge to give away 99% of their Facebook shares to charity.
99%. That's almost everything. How much was that worth?
At the time, it was estimated at around $45 billion.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
It really is. And through their Chan Zuckerberg initiative, they're funding all sorts of stuff like medical research, education reform, criminal justice reform.
So he's really trying to make a positive impact on the world.
Yeah, and he gets a lot of recognition for it. Business Insider even named him a top 10 business visionary. But then, it's not all sunshine and roses.
What do you mean?
Well, in 2019, he announces that they're going to implement end-to-end encryption across all of their messaging platforms. Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Instagram, all of them.
End-to-end encryption. So basically, no one can read the messages except the sender and receiver?
Exactly. Not even Facebook.
Privacy advocates love that.
Oh, yeah. It was a big win for privacy.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2020, they integrate the chat systems for Instagram and Messenger so you can message between the two apps seamlessly.
Makes sense. Streamlining things. But I imagine law enforcement wasn't too happy about the encryption stuff.
You're right. There was pushback. But, Zuckerberg has always been interested in more than just Facebook. Back in 2004, he actually launched this peer-to-peer file sharing service called Wirehog.
Wirehog. Never heard of it.
Yeah, it didn't last long, but it shows he was always exploring new ideas. And in 2016, he joins the board of this crazy, ambitious project called Breakthrough Starshot.
What's that?
It's this initiative to develop these tiny, light-powered spacecraft that could travel to other star systems.
Whoa, seriously? Like interstellar travel?
Yeah, it's wild. Yuri Milner and Stephen Hawking were involved too.
Wow. So he's thinking about, the future of humanity.
Big time. But let's get back to the legal troubles. I mean, the Winklevoss lawsuit was just the beginning. In 2005, his co-founder Eduardo Sabrin, he sues Zuckerberg.
Oh, yeah. What was that about?
Sabrin claimed Zuckerberg had been spending his money illegally, basically.
Sounds messy.
It was, but they settled out of court. Sabrin's co-founder title was confirmed, and he agreed to, stop talking to the press about the whole thing.
So more drama behind the scenes.
Yeah, and then things get really weird in 2010. There's this Drama Muhammad contest on Facebook.
Uh-oh. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, it caused a huge uproar, especially in Pakistan. They actually launched a criminal investigation against Zuckerberg for blasphemy.
Seriously?
Yeah, they even asked Interpol to arrest him. Facebook ends up getting blocked in Pakistan for a while until they remove the content.
Wow. It's crazy how a single online contest can lead to such a huge international incident.
It really is. And that same year, this guy, Paul Seglia, he comes out of nowhere and claims he owns 84% of Facebook.
84%.
Yeah, based on this supposed contract from 2003, Facebook obviously denies it, calls it completely frivolous, and then guess what?
What?
Seglia gets arrested for mail and wire fraud. They accused him of making up the whole thing, literally fabricating evidence.
Wow. People will do anything for a piece of that Facebook pie.
Right. But then there's this whole land dispute in Hawaii between 2014 and 2017.
What happened there?
Zuckerberg buys 700 acres of land on Kauai. Beautiful island.
Okay. Sounds nice.
It is. But then he starts filing these lawsuits against hundreds of native Hawaiians who have these small historical claims to parts of his land.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was a huge PR disaster. People accused him of being a neocolonialist trying to take land from indigenous people.
Yeah, not a good look.
Definitely not. He eventually drops the lawsuits, says he didn't understand the complexities of Hawaiian land ownership.
Well, at least he backed down.
Yeah.
But that must have been a tough lesson to learn.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, there are the congressional hearings.
Oh, yeah, he's been grilled by Congress a few times.
Multiple times. In 2018, he has to testify about the Cambridge Analytica scandal.
Where they harvested all that user data without consent.
Exactly. And he's called to testify about Section 230, which is this law that protects online platforms from liability for what users post.
That's a big one. A lot of debate about whether that law needs to be changed.
Yeah, and then there are the hearings about misinformation, hate speech, online child safety. Zuckerberg is constantly in the hot seat.
Makes sense. Facebook has a lot of power and influence, so they're going to be held accountable.
Absolutely. And even inside Facebook, or Meta, as it's called now, there's controversy. Court documents allege that Zuckerberg personally rejected proposals to improve teen mental health on Facebook and Instagram. He overruled his own executive.
Seriously, why would he do that?
It's unclear, but it suggests that maybe he was prioritizing engagement, keeping people on the platform over their well-being.
That's a pretty serious accusation.
It's a tough balance.
Right? Trying to grow a business while also being responsible.
Definitely. But let's talk about how all of this has been portrayed in the media. The big one, of course, is The Social Network, the movie.
Oh, yeah, the Facebook movie.
Zuckerberg wasn't thrilled about it at first. He said he wished nobody made a movie about him while he was still alive, but he did eventually watch it.
I bet he was curious to see how they portrayed him.
Oh, yeah. And some people who were actually there during Facebook's early days, they said the movie wasn't very accurate. It made him seem more ruthless, less socially skilled than he really is.
Hollywood dramatization, right?
Yeah.
They always take liberties with the truth.
Yeah, the screenwriter Aaron Sorkin even admitted that. But the film won a bunch of awards, and Zuckerberg, to his credit, he seemed to take it in stride. He even appeared on Saturday Night Live with Jesse Eisenberg, the actor who played him in the movie.
Wow, so he has a sense of humor about it.
It seems so. And he's been featured on The Simpsons, South Park, all sorts of shows. He's become a real pop culture figure.
Makes sense. I mean, he's one of the most famous people in the world.
Absolutely. But aside from all the tech stuff and the controversies, he also has a personal life. He met his wife, Priscilla Chan, at a Harvard party back in 2003.
Wow, so they've been together for a long time.
Yeah, they got married in 2012. They have 3 daughters, and they're very private about their family life.
That's understandable. It must be hard to have a normal life when you're that famous.
Yeah, for sure. And Zuckerberg, despite being a tech CEO, he seems to have some diverse interests. In 2017, he does this nationwide tour of the U.S. He visits all these different communities, talks to people from all walks of life. It's like he's trying to understand America better.
That's interesting. Almost like a fact-finding mission.
Yeah, and then in a total surprise move, he gets really into mixed martial arts.
Wait, really? MMA?
Yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the whole thing. He even competed in a tournament and won a couple of medals.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I would never have pictured Mark Zuckerberg as an MMA fighter.
Right. It's unpredictable. But, maybe that's the point. He's always pushing himself, trying new things.
He's evolving.
Exactly. So here we are at the end of our deep dive. It's clear Mark Zuckerberg is a complicated figure, brilliant, ambitious, sometimes ruthless, but also, maybe, trying to use his wealth and influence to make a positive impact on the world.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. From Harvard dorm room to global domination, he's created something that has connected billions of people, but also created all sorts of problems along the way. And it's still unfolding. Who knows what he'll do next?
Exactly. And that's what we want you, the listener, to think about. What do you think Mark Zuckerberg's ultimate legacy will be? Will he be remembered as a visionary who connected the world, or as someone who put profit and power above everything else? It's a big question, and there are no easy answers. But it's a question worth asking. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.